Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Freebeat, where I post new music-related content every single day, so if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, let's get started. Today I've got the Elektron Model Cycles right here, and I think it's safe to say that most people agree that the Model Cycles is an excellent FM-based drum machine. There's a ton of amazing content right here on YouTube where you can find out all sorts of things involving the sound design process for your different drums and sequencing patterns, and there's just a lot of cool drum stuff that the Cycles can do. However, the Model Cycles is a groove box, and being a great drum machine is only half of being a groove box. The other half is focusing on things that are more melodic. And in my opinion, there is not enough content here on YouTube involving the melodic side of the Elektron Model Cycles. So today I'm going to give you my top 5 tips on how to more easily use the Model Cycles in a melodic fashion. But before we do that, I do need to shout out one patron today, and that shout out goes to Joaquin Herrero Pintado. Joaquin, thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you'd like to help out and support the channel, just head over to patreon.com/freebeat. Reward tiers start as little as $1 a month, and that tier does include access to our patron-only Discord, which is a lot of fun. So let's get into the top 5. But once again, I'm going to make you guys wait because I've got an honorable mention tip for you. This one I'm not even going to really show because it's so simple, but if you're going to be working melodically with the Model Cycles, use a MIDI controller to play in your sequences and your melodies and patterns and all that stuff. It's just so much easier playing with actual keys than it is to use these little guys here. Not to mention something like the key step has velocity sensitivity, and you can easily jump between all of your octaves. It's just a lot easier with a MIDI controller, so please use one of these if you're going to be working melodically for any kind of extended period of time. All right, tip number 5 is to ignore the names of the machines. What do I mean by that? Well, the Model Cycles has 6 different machines or sound engines that we can use to play all of our parts. There's kick, snare, metal, perk, tone, and chord. However, like the tip suggests, all of those engines can do many different things. They can all wear a plethora of different hats. For instance, let's get our kick drum here. We're on the kick machine. And with a couple simple tweaks here, extend the decay, open the gate, bring up the pitch 2 octaves, a little bit of reverb, a little delay, take the sweep off, move the shape up. That doesn't sound like any kick drum I've heard before. You can see, as long as you're willing to work within the parameters of the different machine engines, you can get a whole bunch of really cool sounds out of those engines. Don't let the name of the snare track make you think that it's just for snare drums, or the perk track just for percussion. Of course, the tone track and the chord track do work very well for tones and chords, but for the most part, those 4 percussion tracks can all be used melodically as well. Tip number 2 is that knobs are not all or nothing. In a lot of tutorials that I've seen on YouTube, or even just demos of the sound, I see people will have a knob at 0, they'll show off that sound, then they'll crank the knob to full blast, and show that sound. And that's just not quite how the Model Cycles is meant to be used. See, there's a lot of great in-between points on some of these knobs. See, the shape knob at 119 sounds completely different than the shape knob at 85, which sounds completely different than the shape knob at 38. And the same goes for every single knob of every single parameter. It's not an all or nothing thing. You've got to play with it. You've got to spend the time and find those fine-tuned points that really speak to you. There is a lot of sound you can squeeze out of this guy, and most of it is hidden between 0 and 127. Tip number 3 is that no knob does nothing. So I've seen people complaining that, oh, you know, I was turning a knob on the Cycles and it didn't really seem to change the sound. It doesn't seem that important. So for instance, let's turn the color of our kick drum off, and the shape also all the way to the bottom. Now let's change the contour. doesn't really seem to do anything, right? Well, that's because the contour is actually affecting these two knobs, so we need to set them to something other than 0. There we go. Have them both midway or so. Now watch what happens as we move the contour knob. All of a sudden, there is quite a noticeable change. So if it ever feels like a knob is not doing anything, probably means that it is affecting some other knob that you just don't have in the right position yet. So be sure to play around with the different knobs. Again, this kind of ties into the last tip, and find those fine-tuned points that speak to you. But no knob does nothing. All the knobs actually can have a very drastic impact if used properly. Tip number 4 is that the punch button can completely transform your sound design process, which is this button right here. Effectively, what it does is add a little accent or punch to your sound. So there's our sound right now with the punch on. Let's turn off the sweep here. Then without the punch, with the punch. And when you turn on punch, it can also affect how the other knobs sound as well. For instance, that shape knob. As you can hear, there's a lot of variety that I was able to find just right there in the 10 seconds I was messing around. Use the punch knob to your advantage. Same thing goes with the gate knob. When you're playing melodically, it's really nice to be able to hold down a note as long as you'd like. And remember, all these sounds have just been from the kick machine. All right, the last tip is one of my favorites. I'm going to extend the decay real quick here before we get into it. All right, let's go. So the Model Cycles does have an LFO that you can set to just about any parameter here on the face of the unit. Of course, we can set our wave type and our speed and whatnot, as well as the depth of the LFO. But there's actually another modulation source on the Model Cycles, and that is these 6 velocity-sensitive pads, representing each track, of course. So we're on track 1 right now. I can actually set this to modulate any parameter I'd like based on the velocity, how hard I hit the pad. And this will work with velocity-sensitive MIDI keyboards as well. So let me show you how to do that. Hold the function button and press the back button. Under that it says pad menu. That's what we're going to get to. Now if we scroll down to destination, we can set our destination. Let's set our destination to sweep. We're going to make it so the harder we press the pad, the more of that kick drummy thoom we get coming in here. So just like the LFO, you can either go to a negative value or a positive one. In this case, we want a positive one. Let's set it to 33. 33.1, fine. Now, I'm going to lightly press this. And the harder I press it, the more of that sweep we get. That's actually a little too much for my liking, so I'm going to turn that down. Let's try like 15-ish, around there. 15.8. And again, that's in addition to our LFO. So let's go ahead and set our LFO to, how about pitch? Triangle wave, sure. 64 on the speed. And let's set our depth to 7.5. So if I hit it lightly, again, we don't hear our sweep. But the harder I press it, we get that massive sweep coming in, that huge just hit right off the bat. And of course, we still have the LFO going crazy on the pitch there. What happens if we ramp up the speed of the LFO? A little too fast. There we go, 256. So you can get some really cool sounds out of this. Let's go ahead and turn on punch, just see what that sounds like. It's pretty nice. And we still had that nice snap right in the front. And again, we can set that modulation destination to anywhere on the surface of the unit, basically, anywhere that you could send the LFO. And again, just to reiterate, going back to tip number 1, which is ignore the names of the machines, all of the sounds in this video came from the kick machine by itself, nothing else. So those have been my top 5 tips for working with the Elektron model cycles melodically. I hope you found those tips helpful. If you did, or if you just enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like on it. If not, you can leave a dislike, that's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings, just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.